Whenever we want to know a subject well, when it comes to the subject, when it comes to that which is within, the three vantage points that are known are pratyaksha, experience, then anumana, which is inference, and finally is agama, which is the scriptures. We are trying to know who we are, and experience alone will not teach us. Inference alone will not teach us. Truly, the scriptures alone will not teach us, but all are relevant. We are most fortunate to be able to have that third element of knowing who we are completed through this jnana. We have experience, we have inference, but access to the scriptures and the details they bring about who we are, how we can know who we are, makes the difference. These details bring divinity to life. In an earlier sutra, which we've not studied, there's so many, Rishi Patanjali talks about us having 5 types of thoughts. He says the types of thoughts we have are pramana. Pramana means right thinking. Then viparyaya, which means wrong thinking. Vikalpa, which means to doubt. Nidra, which are lazy, sleepy thoughts. And then he finally says smriti, which are thoughts of remembrance. If you analyze all of your thoughts, they will be one of these 5. Right thinking, wrong thinking, doubting, sleepy, or remembrance. And the implication of this is when you know that the thoughts are codified like this, we come to become more clear that I'm not these thoughts. I'm not just sleeping. I'm not just remembering. Those details show us in a meaningful way that this is not who I am. But if I only know general details, general ideas, then I hear this, but I don't feel this. Rishi Patanjali is sharing thoughts on yoga, which is one of the most used words, one of the most misused philosophies, and one of the most abused commercial entities. Name some of the yogas that you now hear of. Hot yoga. What else? Sure. And? Moksha yoga, right? You sit in a sauna, you get moksha. So, used, misused, abused. But when we know what we're doing really is practicing ahimsa right now. Ahimsa is sensitivity. We are being sensitive to the source of yoga. We're not just taking a commercial's interpretation. We're not watching the YouTube and then a yoga ad comes up and we go to that website. We're not taking a new teacher's interpretation. We're going straight to the source. So that pramana, that shastra, that agama is teaching us exactly who we are not. And if we know who we are not, it becomes clear about who we are. If I know that I'm not just beauty, not just the body, it makes such a difference in my life that I go deeper than who am I. If one follows this thread, the sutras, from start to end, one would have achieved yoga, which is leading us to Sanatana Dharma, the unchanging responsibility to be complete. And only when you're complete can you help others be complete. So all of the family people in the room, what is the best gift you can give to your parents? Whether they're alive or not. What is the best gift you can give to your parents? for them not to worry about you, correct? And the only reason they won't worry about you is if you're eating well, number one. But more so, if you're happy. So sharing what I am introducing this last part of our Yoga Sutras with. If you want to know who you are, experience and logic is not enough. One must bring in, the sutras must bring in the Shastra. And sometimes when people study Sanatana Dharma, they're overwhelmed by how many terms there are, how many Shastras there are, and on and on and on. But isn't that how you are? Are you only a brother? You have no other relationships. You're a brother, you're a father, you're a son, you're a worker, you're a teacher. You're one, but you have so many faces. And you need to know all of those faces to really know the one. When we overly simplify a subject, it stops becoming real to us. Because we're not that simple. Sanatana Dharma, our Shastras are perfectly aligned with what we are. I had read somewhere that Sanatana Dharma is like a jungle, and some other religions are like a desert. Now, where does more life live? In the jungle or in the desert? In the jungle. These details help us to stop abusing yoga, misusing yoga, but to use yoga to unite with who we are, our nature, which is bliss. Rishi Patanjali has taken his insights into life and made them practical for us, such as the 8 limbs of practicing yoga, starting with don'ts, then do's. This is how you teach a child, correct? Don't do this, do this. Then stabilize your body, regulate your breath, start to think more about who you are. He's taken these insights and made them practical, which is why Rishi Patanjali is a great role model. If someone has insights but doesn't make them practical, it's hard for us to model them, correct? For someone who can take insights and make them practical, they're ideal role models. In our Upanishads we say, it is being Brahmanishta and Shrotriya. Brahmanishta means you have experience, Shrotriya means you can communicate that experience. Not everyone can be a Sadguru in that sense. Some people have experience, but they don't know how to share that with another person. Some people are sharing, but they have no experience. I remember a professor I had who was a new professor from a very esteemed school, and he was teaching at our business school, and he had no idea how to teach. He was teaching up here, but we were just starting down here. I feel like the majority of us never learned. He was Brahmanishta in this example, but the Shrotriya wasn't there. Rishi Patanjali is both insight and practical. And what he shared with us is the Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutras prepare our mind. This is really a subject of the mind, not a subject of the body. In preparing the mind, our mind becomes more and more. I'll give you an example from Atma Bodha. The creek we have here on our property. Have you all seen the creek we have here? It's very beautiful. It's nice to sit there and listen. This is the Ganga of London. There's the Thames River, but this is the Ganga. For a brief period, it turns into the Ganga over here, and then back to whatever rivers are flowing here. When there's a lot of rain, then that water becomes muddy. And if you go to that water and try to see yourself, you can't see your reflection, correct? So how can you come to see yourself? The first thing that has to happen is the mud needs to settle. That's us getting rid of tamas. But then if the water flows too fast, you still can't see yourself. So the water has to become slower. That's getting rid of the rajas, getting rid of the laziness and the aggression. And when that water is clean and still, what do you come to see? Yourself. The Yoga Sutras are teaching us we are happiness. Unlike how all of you look right now, but we are happiness. We just have to rid ourselves of laziness and aggression, and we will come to see what has always been there. Yesterday we studied the powers of yoga. In the 4th sutra, Rishi Patanjali was telling us, if we come to know Bhagavan, we come to know our Creator, we will start to love our Creator. But if we don't know Bhagavan, we will never love Bhagavan. He's talking about Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. To know Bhagavan is to love Bhagavan. To know Bhagavan is like Dharana, to love Bhagavan is like Dhyana. And what is the evolution of loving? What comes next? We say or use the word surrender or being. Whatever I love, I surrender to it. Even in the dialogue, if you really love someone and you're right, you'll still tell the other person that you are right. Because you're surrendering to their well-being rather than ego. The word surrender in a knowledge viewpoint is being. Whatever you surrender to, you become that, correct? If Ontario surrenders to Manitoba, then we become Manitoba. That's samadhi, right? So we have to ask ourselves, do we know enough about our Creator to love our Creator, to be our Creator? If we do, it's called samyama. And the sutra, the sadhana for the 4th sutra was more paper. More paper, less electronics. To develop that focus. In the 12th sutra, Rishi Patanjali says, when we make our past thoughts and present and future thoughts the same, past, present, future, when we make them the same, tulya, he's really sharing that we've brought a different dimension of focus together. We're really tuning into the present. So he's trying to help us understand samyama. When we do this, that level of focus becomes beyond the world. That's how we have to work with our equipment. And if you think about this logically, if you can go back to your birthday last year, you're all there right now, when you turned 72. If you go back to your birthday last year, are you living in the past or living in the present? You're still accessing the past through the present, correct? Now imagine your birthday next year. Even to get to that, you still have to go through the present. If you can practically, logically understand that we only experience this moment. We've never experienced the past or the future. We've only experienced this moment. That's a new dimension of knowledge that helps us to really make use of this moment. Otherwise, we keep thinking regrets of the past, anxieties of the future. Not possible. This is another way to look at samyama. And the sadhana for the 12th sutra was more chanting. Chanting helps us to tune into the moment. Swami Chinmayananda says all of infinity is contained in this moment. You just have to tune into it. There are radio waves in this room right now, but is the transistor tuned into that radio? In the 16th sutra, which we had studied, Rishi Patanjali begins, what powers can accrue to us? If you can know and love and surrender to Bhagavan, if you can make the past and present and future the same, then you've achieved the focus that yoga can bring, and you can start to develop powers. In the 16th sutra, Rishi Patanjali says you can know the past of everyone, you can know the future of everyone. Past and the future. And now looking at this in a very real way, if you know when you're going to die, does that help you or hurt you? Help you or hurt you? I think it'll hurt us because we don't know how to live with that understanding that we're going to die. All I'm going to think about is me die. We're not like Raja Parikshita. When he was told he was going to die, he went to satsang. If we know we're going to die, we're going to buy more insurance and hide in our room. I'm putting it differently. What if you know your family from your last lifetime? And now you're married and you were married in the past too. Who are you really married to then, correct? So he's saying you can have these powers, but will they serve the purpose of yoga? Do you remember what the purpose of yoga is? Transcending the thoughts of the mind is yoga. Is it to know the future and the past? Think hard about that, okay? When we focus, we can invoke what we're focusing on. And I gave you some of the narrations related to that. I'll give you one more, because I know this fascinates you. Swami Tejamanand always says, without chamatkar, there's no namaskar. We're always interested in chamatkar, right? Not namaskar. One of Sri Ramakrishna's disciples, he was a siddha, having the powers I'm describing right now. And back in the day, they didn't have electricity in Kolkata. And they were walking back to the ashram. There's really a jungle there. So one of the powers is that if you focus on your prana and your breathing, your body can become luminous. You can start to radiate light. So this disciple, he made his body luminous because he had that focus on his own breath. And Sri Ramakrishna actually took that power away from him because it was an obstacle in him going all the way to the end of yoga. Isn't that amazing? How much Sri Ramakrishna loved that disciple to take that power away from him, because that's not the purpose of yoga. Because I know some of you are thinking, if I can learn how to stare at the sun, I never have to go grocery shopping ever again, correct? How much time and money I'll save. Your sadhana for 16 was more we, less I. If you're interested in these powers, who are you thinking of? I. What do we need to do? Think about we. In the 34th sutra, Rishi Patanjali says, but if someone gains knowledge of who they are, Brahmavit, Brahmeva, Bhavati. The one who knows Brahman is Brahman. If I know I'm infinite, then don't all of these powers come with that? You gather all of these. This is best taught in the end of chapter 15, where Bhagavan Krishna calls Prince Arjuna by two names. We always chant chapter 15, correct? So tell me, what are the two names that Bhagavan Krishna calls Prince Arjuna? Now you're just guessing. He calls him Anagha and then Bharata. Agha means impure, dirty. Anagha means the one who is pure. And in the next line he calls him Bharata. What does Bha mean? Light, knowledge, joy. And Rata, filled with. So Bhagavan Krishna is telling Prince Arjuna, your responsibility is to become Anagha, and I will make you Bharata. That's what's shown in this 34th sutra. We just have to become pure. Then Bhagwan, the Guru, will make us Bharata, and all of these powers will come to us. But most importantly, what is the purpose of yoga? Transcending the thoughts of the mind so I can see my nature. That will be achieved. Yoga becomes real. The sadhana for the 34th sutra is more goodness and less selfishness or smartness. Smartness is me getting ahead in the world. Goodness is me going past the world. The last sutra we will study for the power section, which I didn't cover yesterday. This is the 51st sutra, 51. Please repeat after me. Tad vairagyad api dosha bija kshaye kaivalyam. Tad vairagyadi api dosha bija kshaye kaivalyam. You know these words. Tat. Tat is referring to all of the powers that we just studied. Vairagya. We should have vairagya from these powers. Because in these powers there is dosha. There is a fault or a weakness in these powers. What is the dosha? What is the fault in these powers? What's still present? Ego. That bija is still there. The seed of ignorance, the ego. But if I become independent of these powers, then kshaya, even that seed will become roasted. That seed will die, and I will experience kaivalya. Kaivalya is free. I was sharing with you earlier that when you traditionally see Bhagwan Ganesha, he has two patnis, two wives, and their names are Riddhi and Siddhi. Riddhi and Siddhi symbolize power, and Bhagwan Ganesha symbolizes peace. Sharing this in a different scriptural context. What Upanishad is a dialogue with death? What Upanishad is based on a dialogue with death? Katha Upanishad. Kataka Upanishad. In this, the main personality that is introduced is Nachiketa. And he's speaking to Yama. And Nachiketa, when he's in hell, when he's with death, he's given 3 boons. Because he had to wait there for 3 nights. Dharmaraja gives him 3 boons. And essentially with this first boon, he says, forgive my father. That's amazing that his father sends him to death, and his first boon is for his father. His second boon is for people's welfare. He's thinking about people in general, that may they gain access to a science that can help them. And the best part of this Upanishad is, then he says, tell me the truth. And Yamaraja says, the truth is difficult. I can give you dancers, I can give you singers, I can give you horses, I can give you elephants. He starts listing all of this. And Nachiketa, this little boy, if you take any little boy and say, I can give you a horse, sold. Right? What truth? What truth? He says, you keep your song and dance to yourself. You just give me the truth. And based on that sincerity, Yama starts to teach him. Until then, he didn't teach him. Just like Prince Arjuna, until he said, I'm your disciple, but Bhagwan Krishna never taught him. Now the word Nachiketa means the one who doesn't collect. He doesn't collect that which is unnecessary. He's not collecting these powers. He wants the truth. He wants peace. Towards Riddhi and Siddhi, towards singing and dancing, Vairagya. Because it's all still based on space, time, and matter. Anything that's based on space, time, and matter will change. That's literally what Nachiketa tells Yamaraja. He says, how long will you be the Lord of Death? Your time will come to an end also. You have a greater boss. Who's Nachiketa's boss? Bhagavan Shiva. You will also go. And then all of that appointment that you gave me will go too, correct? In our parliament, when the government changes, my position goes too. These powers are within space, time, and matter, and so we should not depend on them for completion. The sadhana for the 51st sutra is more gratitude. More gratitude. It is not happy people that are grateful. It is grateful people that are happy. Tell me some reasons that you have to be grateful right now. What are some reasons to be grateful? It's warm in here. Some people disagree, but it is warm in here relative to outside. And?
Seeing and hearing and breathing.
You can see, hear, breathe.
We get beautiful knowledge here.
We have access to the Yoga Sutras. We know where our next meal will be. We have a pillow. We have corrective lenses. We have a healthcare system. We have an emergency system. We don't breathe in polluted air. Now, if you focus on all of that, do you need more? We don't need anything more. No more powers. I'm just peaceful. These sutras, though written in Sanskrit, if you think about them, are most practical. It just requires us to think about them. That's what this knowledge series is all about. It's not about entertainment. It's not about stories. It's about encouraging us to integrate these insights into our practice. Which leads us to the last part of the Yoga Sutras. This is called Kaivalya Pada. The quarter that focuses on Kaivalya, or peace. From the purpose, we went to the practice, to the powers, and now to peace. I'm taking up the first sutra. Janma, Aushadhi, Mantra, Tapaha, Samadhijaha, Siddhayaha. Siddhayaha means obtain. He's referring to the powers from the previous portion. These powers can be attained by janma. Janma means birth. In other words, you just keep on being reborn, getting these powers. These powers can also be gained by aushadhi. What does aushadhi mean? Medicine, but here it means drugs. Not medicine as in metformin. Aushadhi here means like heroin, opioids, hallucinogens. This can also be realized or gained by mantra. Mantra is chanting. It can also be gained by tapa, effort. And it can also be gained by samadhi. Samadhi here means absorption. Now, I've given you the literal meaning of all of this. These powers in the previous portion that can be gained, out of all of these strategies, which is the longest lasting strategy? What is the most efficient way to realize these powers and go beyond them? Through janma. Janma is going to be a very slow way to do that, isn't it? It's like people who learn in an ad hoc way. No guidance, I'm just going to learn. Many people are like that. What about aushadhi? It came in fast and it is going to go fast too. Alcohol is known as liquid confidence, correct? I'm so confident that I can drive right now. I couldn't drive before, but now I can drive. So janma is slow, aushadhi is fast. Mantra, Mantra means manana trayate. In other words, you have to keep on reflecting on it. Tapaha means to change. If you burn your comfort zones, that means you're changing. And samadhi means being. Being. Remember I said surrender. Rishi Patanjali is sharing in this sutra, you should focus on that which will last forever. He's not neglecting tapaha or mantra. He's only focusing on samadhi. Samadhi will last forever. If you look into this sutra some more, he's encouraging us to follow the path of Shreya. Preya is the path of pleasure. Shreya is a path of peace. Whenever we think in the short term, it's pleasurable. Like using the snooze button, like overeating, like insulting someone back because they insulted us. But if you follow Shreya, it is lasting. Then there will be peace. Maybe I won't feel it in the beginning, but there will be peace. We feel much better not giving in to a word war than giving in, isn't it? Someone writes you a harsh email and you don't respond in the same context. You feel much better than if you do respond. Because what are they going to do? They will respond back. I read somewhere, when you're arguing with a fool, they're doing the same thing, isn't it? I'm writing to you saying, you're such a fool. They're writing the same thing, he's such a fool. A word war. But samadhi indicates being. Not that which can come and go, but that which will be forever. And a virtue that can really come strongly from following the path of Shreya is patience. How many of you own stocks or some sort of portfolio related to an investment? Most people. And whenever you buy stocks, whenever you invest, your stockbroker will always say, if you want to make money, you have to be in this for the long run, isn't it? And if you're only in this for the short run, you may lose a little bit, but you're only going to make a little bit. But if you're in this for the long run, those fluctuations get balanced out. You have to be patient. For people who buy land, you have to be patient. For everyone else to buy the land around yours, and then you sell it to them for way more. Samadhi is Shreya, is patience. And your sadhana for this first sutra, you should create for yourself. You create your own sadhana. And I'm already warning you, for every sutra here, I'm going to tell you, you create your own. Because my peace is not your peace. If I'm peaceful, some of you are frustrated by that, correct? But you can't experience peace by proxy. This is not a ritual. Your peace is your peace, my peace is my peace. Swami Tejamayana shares, only you can live your life. Right? In the 6th sutra, Tatra Dhyanajam Anashyam Tatra. In the mind, Tatra is referring to the mind, Dhyanajam, only by samadhi can anashyam, all that is driving the mind in different directions, be destroyed, be nasha, be taken care of. What is the function of the mind? What is it always engaged in? Thoughts. But thoughts are just an effect. What are thoughts caused by? Not imagination. Desires. So here, Rishi Patanjali is saying, those thoughts of the mind. What is the purpose of yoga? Transcending the thoughts of the mind. If you want to transcend them, you have to work on the desires. The desires can only be reconciled, can be removed by samadhi. Dhyanajam here means samadhi, being peaceful. So So I'll make this more relative. Out of the 6 enemies that live inside of us, which one is most evident? You remember the 6 enemies I talked about? Which one do we have the biggest problem with amongst the 6 enemies that live inside of us? Greed, desire, all of them, but I think it's anger. Every one of us has an anger management issue. Now, taking this in a different framework, anger is actually an effect. It is not independent of itself. Anger is caused by fear. When I'm afraid, whatever is making me afraid, I get angry at. Anger is the effect, fear is the cause. Fear is also an effect. That's not independent either. Sociologists make it independent, but that's not true. What is the cause of fear?
Desire.
Attachment. Raga. Raga causes bhaya, which causes krodha. That fear comes from attachment. Whatever I'm attached to, I'm afraid I may not get it, or I'm afraid I will lose it. But if you're not attached, you're not afraid. So attachment is an effect. And the cause for attachment is? Attachment's just an effect. So now think, if you're attached to your children, that's not intrinsic. What is the cause for attachment? Sort of. Projection. And in a more familial sense, it's expectation. I project that you will bring to me what I want, what I need, so I get attached to you. Do you get attached to people that can't provide for you? You only get attached to people who can give you something, which is very evident of what the cause for projection is then. What causes projection? Ignorance or incompleteness. Incompleteness. When I'm incomplete, I project that you will bring me happiness, that projection. I get attached to you, then I'm afraid that you'll go away, and I get angry even at you, and whatever caused that. So all of this started from incompleteness. In Sanskrit, the word is avidya, causes vikshepa, which causes raga, which causes bhaya, which causes krodha. In this sutra, Rishi Patanjali is saying, if you can be peaceful, that cause, which is incompleteness, is now nashya, isn't it? Incompleteness is gone. What goes with it? Expectation, attachment, fear, anger. This sutra is going straight to the source, not the symptom. When you go to a physician for health issues, don't just deal with the symptoms, deal with the source. Here too. Vices can only exist in separation, in dvaita. Vices cannot exist in advaita. If there's oneness, where can anger be directed? You can't be angry at yourself, because if you're angry at yourself, you did something. But in oneness, there's no doing, there's only being. Vices only occur in separation. We'll make it different. Can you be jealous of yourself? Have you ever experienced jealousy of yourself? Can you be jealous of another person? We're all jealous of everyone here. See how in the Advaita there cannot be jealousy. Can you be lusty towards yourself? You can be lusty towards anyone else. Even our devatas, there's narrations of them being lusty towards their own family. But towards themselves, you can never be lusty. You can never be jealous. When we be peace, samadhi, that is Advaita. Because all of the vices go away. These Yoga Sutras, contrary to what people think, this is lower level Vedanta. It is the highest Vedanta. And what was your sadhana for the fourth sutra? You create your own. You create your own. These ones are easy to remember. All 5 of them. That was sutra number 6, correct? Okay. So now I'm going to sutra number 18. How many sutras are in the Yoga Sutras? 194. A whole lot. So I hope you can appreciate why we're only taking 10% of them. In sutra number 18, na tat swabhasam drishyatvat na tat swabhasam drishyatvat. Na tat. Tat here is referring once again to the mind. These powers are referring to the mind. So here he's saying, think more than the powers. Not in the mind is swabhasa. The mind is not self-illuminating. It's not the source of light. It is drishyatvat. The mind is that which is seen, that which is observed, that which is known. Can any of you understand this Sanskrit independently? If I read na tat swabhasam drishyatvat, can you understand this? If I tell you the translation of this, can you understand it? Maybe 1% with the Sanskrit, maybe 10% with the translation. Those are fair numbers. It's really, really, really important for us to not just chant this, but to keep on making this our own. So trying to make this our own, I'm going to reference another text which some of you have studied. Drig Drishya Viveka by Acharya. Drig Drishya Viveka, Drik means see. Drishya means seer. And Viveka means distinction. The distinction between the seen and the seer. And I'll just give you a little bit of what he says. He says the objects are many, but the eyes are one. There's many seen, but there's only one seer. And does the seen affect the seer? If it's snowing outside, which it was today, do my eyes start to snow? Did my eyes get intrinsically cold? No. So here Rishi Patanjali is saying the mind is seen, drishyate, which means the seer is different. Which means you are not the mind. So when the mind is very agitated, are you agitated? You don't have to be if you know this sutra. We had a powerful workshop in Cleveland on beyond bullying. And we had a social worker who came and spoke on bullying. And he was saying instead of calling such and such person a bully, you should refer to them as those who bully. Because when we call someone a bully, we're intrinsically saying that this is who you are. But when you start to say those who bully, that's just something they're doing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's who they are. Because when people keep calling us a bully, we almost do become that, isn't it? I was sitting with a mother of two in another city, and I asked her, I said, your daughters, which one is like you and which one is like your husband? And she very, very thoughtfully said, we try not to use such labels. Because if one daughter says, I'm more like my father, she's naturally going to become like that, correct? Even her own personality can be stifled from growing. In this simple sutra, Rishi Patanjali is saying that your mind that is constantly teasing you, poking you, harming you, you're not that. In our Vedanta courses we study, anything you know cannot be I. Anything I know cannot be I. I know this mic, correct? I can't be that mic. You know the chair you're sitting on, which means you can't be the chair. Now, you want to know where this becomes strange? You know your hand, correct? But don't we say, I am the hand. I know my teeth, but I say, I am the teeth. I also know my mind, but I say, I am the mind. Very illogical. And who created that wrong logic? Myself. When it comes to outside, I'm so logical, but when it comes to myself, logic breaks. I asked my mother, I said, you left India to come to Canada for happiness. Why can't I leave Canada to go to India for happiness? For the Vedanta course. What was her response? That's different. See how you can't use logic in such emotional relationships. And that's between a son and his mother. Imagine us and ourselves. Anything you know you cannot be. You can only be who you are. You can only be Atma. That's where their Batman came from. Be Atman. Be Atman. Atman is I. Be I. Don't be the mind. That's what's being shared in this sutra. And a way to bring this to life is to start to practice observing the world. When you walk, observe the world around you. When you cook, observe the cooking. When you're brushing your teeth, observe as if you're watching a movie. In a movie you see people who brush their teeth. Imagine this is a movie. And if we develop this capacity to observe that which is happening outside of us, we have the tendency to start to observe that which is happening inside of us. The mind. And if you reach that subtle point of observing the ego disappears. Acharya Shankara says in Vivek, Maya cannot handle inquiry. Cannot handle inquiry. If you get to that level of observership, Maya just goes away. But first we have to observe, which means you can't lose your car keys. You can't forget people's names. You can't waste food. Because that's us being careless. But an observer, they're careful with logic. Your sutra, keep mixing them up. Your sadhana for the 18th sutra is you create your own. Now we're nearing the end of our study. I'm now on the 23rd sutra, which takes the last one, but opens it up much more. Tat asankyeya vasana bihi chittam api parartham samhatya karitvat tat asankyeya vasanamihi chittam api parartham samhatya karitvat. Tat is referring to the mind again. Asankyeya, innumerable, too many to count. Vasanabhi, this mind, intellect, ego, has too many vasanas, impressions, and then desires, and then thoughts. And this mind, this chittam, parartham, serves someone else. Samhatya karitvat, it does not act independently, does not act for itself. So now I'll share more about this. Why did you eat dinner today? Why?
Because our body is ready.
Because your body is hungry. Why do you serve your body? To calm your mind. Why do you want to calm your mind? To be happy. Why didn't you eat dinner today?
To be happy.
Also to be happy. You ate dinner, you didn't eat dinner, both were for happiness. You drove, you didn't drive, for happiness. Every thought, word, and action that we engage in is for joy. That is not a want, that is a need. And this is what this sutra is sharing, is that the mind is just an equipment that is to serve us towards joy. So what's happening in the mind, those thoughts, understand your relationship with them, observe them. Don't be those thoughts. I'm going to go heavier into this. The mind depends on the spirit. The spirit does not depend on the mind. When you're asleep, is your mind there? It's dormant, but the spirit is there. So who's more independent? That mind depends on the spirit. And Bhagavan Krishna shares this by saying, I am not in them, they are in me. I am not in them, they are in me. And that's relatively difficult to understand, so switch the words to, I do not depend on them, they depend on me. The mind is not independent of the self is independent of the mind. I was actually teaching the sutra to Vyasa today, and I was sharing with him, because he's already too old, 5 months, he should have learned this earlier. Every moment of our lives, we've gone through a sentence that is made up of 3 parts. In this sentence, the first part is I, the second part is am, and the third part is ever-changing. And, sorry, I replaced the word am with know. I know, and then the third part, everything is changing. I know, and what is this? Bookmark. I know, sweater. That which is changing is really the mind. I know the mind. That third part of that sentence keeps on changing. That is representative of the mind, or the mind represents that which is changing. I know never changes. It hasn't changed, it will not change. In Vedanta we call that Sat, Chit. I's existence, Sat. Know is Chit or awareness. But that last part continuously changes. So why give so much importance to that which is changing, when we should be focusing on the I know, the Sat, Chit? That is what is independent. That is peace. Because what is the nature of Sat Chit? Ananda. But if I keep focusing on what's changing, I'm forgetting the Ananda aspect. The sadhana for the 23rd sutra is you create your own. And on the last sutra that we're going to study, this is our 20th sutra out of 194. Tataha klesha karma nivrittihi. Tataha klesha karma nivrittihi. Nivrittihi is the same word as nirodha, transcending, ceasing. Karma. Karma means acting. Why do I act? Because I think. Why do I think? Because I have desires. Why do I have desires? Because I'm unhappy. I'm incomplete. And that causes me klesha. Klesha means sadness. When all is complete, I still feel incomplete. I had read one interpretation of the word klesha, when the only one who can remove klesha is Keshava. Keshava is Bhagavan Krishna, or Bhagavan. Only Keshava can remove klesha. And for those on social media, I I quoted a teaching of Swami Tejamananda, who said, there's always one part of us that is incomplete that only Bhagavan can fill, that the Creator can fill. It cannot be done by you or I. This has to be filled in with that presence of the divine, with the Self. Karma is relative. Every action we engage in, think about it. The user, the equipment is finite, correct? The equipment that the user is using is finite also. So if I'm finite and this is finite, what's going to be created? That which is finite. This is relative, that's relative. What's going to be created? The absolute. You cannot create joy. You can only rediscover joy. That's what's being shared in this last sutra that we're going to study. If someone knows well the purpose of yoga, they will follow well the practice of yoga. And they will be aware well of the powers of yoga. Being aware well means I'm not interested. That person will finally reach peace. And the sadhana for this last sutra is you create your own. In this last section, we began by taking up a sutra that said, our life should focus on that which is lasting. I had mentioned the difference between Preya and Shreya, about impatience and patience. That which is lasting is Sat Chit Ananda. Existence, awareness, joy is Bhagavan, and it is not desires. It is no vice. In this 18th sutra, Rishi Patanjali is telling us to pay attention. Pay attention to how the mind works, and if you pay attention to the mind, you'll realize you're not the mind. I read a very powerful message that said, sorrow is as real as you make it. If you make your mind most real, it will experience sorrow. I will say, I am sorrowful. But if I don't treat the mind to be so real, when that sorrow comes, it's not so real. So pay attention. Pay attention to what? Not just to driving or cooking or interacting, but pay attention to you. This is a subjective science. In the 23rd sutra, if we pay attention, we will realize that the mind is ever teaching us that it is dependent on the self. That the mind is trying to act for joy. Whether it achieves it or not is secondary, but it's still inclined towards joy. And in the last sutra, peace is felt as completion. Even when outside all is incomplete, if I've realized peace, I am complete. Outside completion is not relevant. It's redundant. Goswamiji says in Ramayana, when Sri Bharata decides to live outside of Ayodhya, he says, Bhagavan Rama is not living in Ayodhya, I'm not living there either. Bhagavan Rama is sleeping on the ground, so he actually dug a cave and slept underneath the ground. And Goswamiji says, for the person who has Shri inside, Shri means virtues, Shri means where Rama is, then it does not matter whether Shri is outside or not. So much so, the example that's given is, they're so independent of Shri outside, as independent as one is towards their own vomit. That's the reference that is used. That if I'm happy inside, if you think of the last time you vomited, did you keep it? Is it in your fridge right now? Correct? You want to get rid of it as soon as possible so that you can enjoy good health. You can enjoy your nature. We are Brahman. And I'm not showing this to slap you that you should wake up, but we are Brahman, just as a reference point. But we feel Brahman is inaccessible. So imagine Brahman takes on more of a form and name, and then we start to call Brahman Bhagwan. Rama is Brahman with the form of a tall, handsome, blue man, and we call him Rama. But we don't try hard enough to access Bhagwan Rama either. So Bhagwan takes on more of a form and name, and that's referred to as Shastra, scripture. Ramayana, as an example, is the Ayana is the path to Rama. Ramayana. You cannot separate Ramayana from Rama, correct? But we can't access scripture either. So the scripture takes on more of a form and name as Sadguru, as our guide. We have our hands in our pocket. The Sadguru puts his hand out, her hand out, so that we take our hand out of our pocket. Our hand in our pocket is the sense of security in pleasure, possession, position. When we see that hand, we take our hand out and hold on. And the Sadguru navigates us through the Shastra, navigates us to Bhagwan, and takes our hand and gives our hand to Bhagwan. And then Bhagwan embraces us, and all that remains is Brahman. We are the created, and as long as we're created, there has to be a creator. But once the creator and created merge, there's only oneness. Advaita, Sat Chit Ananda. I hope over the last 4 evenings that you felt Sadguru in Rishi Patanjali, and that you felt Shastra in the Yoga Sutras. So do some reflection to see if you felt this. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. Now we have 20 sutras that we've been exposed to, 15 sadhanas I've shared with you, plus you've come up with 5 of your own. And if that quote doesn't make sense, I'll leave one more with you. Doing the same action and expecting a different result is insanity. Foolishness is you being polite. This is Einstein's quote. He says it's insanity. Doing the same action and expecting a different result. For our next Jnana Yajna, if we haven't changed by the time the next Jnana Yajna has come, then that very wonderful quote about doing the same thing and getting the same thing, that's about us then. And we are that insane person. And right in front of us, Sadguru, Shastra, and just one step further away, as it is Bhagwan and Brahman. Any questions from anyone to wrap up our Jnana Yajna? Today, any of the past 3 days, sutras, sadhanas, words?
Sutra 1.
Sutra 1 of which section? Yeah.
The Aushadhi, is it used in a good way or bad?
All 4 of the references, which is Janma, Aushadhi, Mantra, and Tapa, all of them are used in the negative in comparison to Samadhi. So Janma, the implication is slowness. Aushadhi, the implication is quickness. You take a drug, all of a sudden you're blissful. But the idea is that which comes in quickly will go quickly. So Rishi Patanjali is sharing here that you have to go through samadhi. Because once you reach samadhi, it's kaivalya. Everything else has the potential to return. Like janma, like aushadhi. Mantra, some people just chant mantra but they don't think about it. Some people engage in tapa but they don't know why they're doing tapa. But if you reach samadhi, it's the full practice at that point.
And the next sutra, the drushtatva.
Yes.
That word means observing, not seeing.
That
Observation is different. That's what Drishta Vivek is.
Yes. So that which is observed has to be different than the observer.
That's right.
Right? So observer and observed and seen and seer, so they're used interchangeably.
Yes. So observer will see, but somebody else will observe.
Yes.
So that's how.
Correct. And if you really want to go deep into this, Brahman is not even the Sakshi. Today in Atma Bodha we're going to study that. Because if there's a witness, that means there's a witnessed, which means there's duality, correct? That's why Sakshi leads you to Brahman, but Sakshi is not Brahman. Is not. Because being is Brahman. Witnessing is not Brahman. You're catching that, Mohanji?
Yes.
If you're a witness, there has to be something else that's there, correct? Sakshi is the sadhana, it is not the sadhya. It is the means and not the ends. Yes?
You mentioned that your peace is different from my peace. If it's true peace, not the one that I take a drug and get in blissful, that kind of thing, how can that peace be different?
Yes.
It has got to by getting rid of all our moha, lobha, all of that, ultimate realization. How can it be different for you, me, or him?
Sure. So the question is, if your piece is your piece and my piece is my piece, then how can it be different? And I think we're referring to peace in a different way, such as, if I have a headache and you take a Tylenol, it's not going to affect my headache, correct? I have to consume that Tylenol.
Okay.
If I'm agitated and I follow yoga, I become peaceful. If you're agitated, me following yoga and practicing, being peaceful is not going to make you less agitated. However, to your point, Acharya Shankara's enlightenment is the same as any enlightenment we will experience. There's only one enlightenment. There's only one infinity. So that, in that sense, it's all the same piece. If you and I get enlightened, it will be the same. Not that your London piece is different than my Cleveland piece. Not like that. Okay, so there is only one piece. But me being peaceful is not going to make you peaceful in a fundamental way. Yes, Shivali, go ahead.
If the cities that you mentioned have bushes and have no purpose essentially, why is it even mentioned in this Sutras, and why is it even go to the extent of like showing you how to do this?
Yeah. For some people, they don't want peace. So really, Yoga Sutras ends with the third portion. It's just like Ashtanga Yoga, correct? Some people don't want to get the 2 pratyaharas, so they just stop at pranayama. So Rishi Patanjali created this for all sorts of people. And you'll see throughout the third section, he keeps on poking fun of the third section also. Saying that there's still dosha in this, if you're enlightened, you get all of the powers anyway. So he's subtly trying to propel us to the fourth part. So some people just have that personality. So he's sharing this with them too. But we've made it even worse. We don't even get to the powers. We just sit in a sauna. Let us read the second sutra again. Today someone was asking me, why do we always give an extra $1? You know, like $101. Why do we rechant the first or meaningful shloka. The idea being that there should be no end to giving. Once you give $101, you should be working towards giving $201. And it should never end in giving. And the same goes in study. We always reread the first shloka or the meaningful one, saying that I will study this again. And I hope that some of you have found this interesting, that you should study the other 174 sutras. Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. Transcending the thoughts of the mind is yoga, and that is done by remembering. After you remember, you have to start to be. After you be, you have to nourish. Because we're going to be, but then we're going to be pushed back. Sometimes from the outside, sometimes from the inside. So we have to nourish more. And once that momentum is going to reach the end, you create your own sutra. It means you have to live whatever you created for yourself. How many of you tried the rad from yesterday about identifying the weakness you glorify? Anyone want to share the weakness you glorify? Hey, Katharina? Gossip. Here? What weakness?
Being worried.
Being worried. That's a big one. Yes.
Procrastination.
Procrastinating. Totally.
Tenacious.
Anyone else? Worrying. See, we have a team over here. You two can worry together. Planning. Did you want to share? Yes, Rekaji, go ahead.
Affected by too much planning.
If you're glorifying the weakness, you're strengthening the weakness. The purpose of this rad, if you're glorifying it, really you're treating it casually, which means you're just giving it more fuel to burn you. After you introspect and detect, what was number 3? Negate. To be ashamed of over-planning, of worrying, of being tenacious. That's the only way it will stop. Then the rad from yesterday was, what is your greatest achievement? Anyone want to share what their greatest achievement is?
I gave it a lot of thought yesterday because I kind of went through a whole bunch of all the professional achievements and things which have just come my way, and I really didn't attribute them as they just happened. It's not an achievement. Today, while driving out to the ashram, came to me probably the greatest achievement was overcoming an emotional block rather than anything material in nature.
Okay.
Still alive.
That you're still alive, okay. And? Sometimes these exercises are no good with all of you because you give the best answers. But if you ask a typical person, they'll say that I built this company by myself, that I've raised 3 kids, etc., etc., etc. Those achievements are still a finite entity using finite equipment, so the result will be finite. 100 years from now, will anyone remember that? Right? So truly, we should focus on moksha, on peace, which lasts forever. Because once you're peaceful, you can start sharing it. We're studying a text that's 2,400 years old. Isn't it? Lasts forever.